today I was up for whatever reason at 4 a.m., woke up, and I'd seen that our guys from the Outback Quarterback podcast from Australia had actually invited us to be collaborative on Instagram.
Yep.
So they had posted that George Pickens had been traded to the Cowboys. So I posted that and right off the bat, I was battling people in the comments at 4 a.m. I was like, man, who needs coffee? My initial consensus was, okay, this instantly makes the Cowboys better. The dude's a legitimate wide receiver 1 on a team. And then when you look at the guy who he played with as quarterback, and it made sense now that the Cowboys didn't draft someone a couple weeks ago, it just all seems to be coming together a little bit.
Don't forget that we also added Jonathan Mingo last year, who was a second-round pick. Let's just say that one of these guys is average and the other one reaches the potential of where they were picked. Huge win for the Cowboys. I would argue that this trio that we have could be the best since 2016 and certainly is the best since 2021, where we had the last year of Amari Cooper, basically, and CeeDee Lamb's kind of the passing of the torch to CeeDee Lamb there. Before that, it would have been 2016. It was Dez Bryant, Williams, and Beasley. I think this is really exciting. A lot of it's going to come down to how quickly these guys can get in tune with Dak Prescott, and luckily we're not going to have to worry about CeeDee Lamb doing that over the first 2 weeks of the season. He should be ready to rip and roar with Dak. So
when I woke up, I didn't know at first if it was real or not.
I had a bunch of really good ideas for memes, but I was also kind of laying in bed half awake, and I was like, I'm too lazy to go do it. Because the one I wanted to see is, and I'm sure it's someone did it, but it's Dak Prescott throws third interception, and George Pickens then is somewhere downfield with a random cornerback fighting, because there's a bunch of clips of just George Pickens just scrapping in the weirdest times, like end of a Hail Mary fighting.
Yeah.
Gets pushed out of bounds fighting. I don't mind the scrappiness.
Yeah, neither do I. Taylor Chima's in the chat. He just says, we are so back, boys.
We are. This is exciting.
This is exciting. And when I think about going into the draft and how heavily we wanted a running back and a wide receiver, I'm putting on some rose-colored glasses. Would I have been happier with a Hampton-Higgins combo in the draft? But that means that we don't get Brooks. Probably, because I wouldn't have even known that we would have had that potential. But now when I sit back and look at it, a team that's made to go deep into the playoffs. I didn't think getting the wide receiver and running back combo that we were hoping to get was going to be this coming up playoff team, right? Playoffs. I thought it's building towards that. Next year is we get our offense running, and then the year after, this 2025-26 draft, that's when we would go and fill the hole guys.
Again, back to just his quarterbacks that he had in Pittsburgh. He had Kenny Pickett.
Yep.
He had Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph. Who else did he have?
Justin Fields,
Russell Wilson. Not the greatest guy.
Russell Wilson
Mitch
was the
Trubisky.
best.
Mitch Trubisky at one point.
Yeah.
And the dude still was almost 1,000-yard receiver every year with multiple touchdowns.
At first, my first instinct when I heard the George Pickens thing was like, oh man, like, are we going to have that type of drama? Everyone's like, George Pickens is a head case because he's scrapping everybody. I kind of like that ferociousness. Yeah. I like that he's that X guy. He has some incredible catches. Everyone's like, oh, he drops a lot of passes. But when you see how many times he's targeted and what he's done for receptions, like, I'll take that. You line him up across from CeeDee Lamb. Does he elevate into 1,200 yards?
Going to be contract hungry. That's one of those little things that you can't determine what a guy's going to do. Guys in their contract years tend to elevate. So we got this rental, and everyone's saying, well, he's in his 4th year, right? Which kind of sucks. It seems like a rental. But if he goes somewhere else and gets signed, the Cowboys will get a comp pick. That could be as high as a 3rd-round comp pick.
So exactly.
It's almost a free rental.
Because they inherit that.
They inherit. So it's almost a freebie. So he does go somewhere else, and you get a 3rd for him. Well, you got your 3rd that you traded for him anyway. Now it's a freebie.
Now my thought,
or that elusive 4th rounder.
Yeah, or that 4th rounder. We get 2 4ths next year. We'd be just juicing. We would be booshing everywhere.
I wouldn't even care about
double 4s. To get
double 2 4s, 4-4.
The thing I like about it, after you look at the details, you're like, I don't care if it's only a 1-year rental, because if he does ball out, it means it's going to benefit us. Secondly, the Cowboys are in a pretty good spot where they could either A, take someone next year in the draft, like a better wide receiver, or you now have a guy like Jonathan Mingo who doesn't have to have that pressure on him to be the WR2 this year. He might slot in as a nice wide receiver 3 option, and possibly he could be your wide receiver 2 next year if he starts to really show what he can do this year, right?
It's just nice to know that whoever ends up being wide receiver 3 is battling more than just one person. Well, were you guys feeling very confident with wide receiver 2 is either going to be Mingo or Tolbert? Not really.
No, but this is what's nice. Let's take Bingo out of it too, because he was newly acquired. Going back to the beginning of this season, Turpin and Tolbert, and then a handful of dudes who could play in the NFL, but they're not going to change the Dallas Cowboys offense. We now have 2 dudes with that potential.
The George Pickens trade details. We didn't even say that. So Cowboys get wide receiver George Pickens and a 2026 6th-round pick, and the Steelers get a 2026 3rd-round pick and a 2027 5th-round pick. I think this is a very fair trade for both teams.
Someone in the comments said T.O. in his heyday on the Cowboys makes George Pickens look like a kindergarten person. In terms of like controversial in Dallas, like if you can get him to come in and he's going to get fines or whatever on the field, and yet he's able to put up 900 to 1,000 yards, it's worth it. Take that pressure off of CeeDee Lamb.
If you look at him like in his highlights, he looks very CeeDee Lamb the way he moves. He looks a little faster than CeeDee, but they have the similar body type, and a lot of these highlights look like he's running out of the X position.
He had 811 total snaps, 666 were wide.
That's juicy.
143 in slot. So he doesn't.
We gotta like that. Yeah. That's a good split for us.
But this is what the Cowboys needed. This is going to help our run game. And one thing that George Pickens adds is that deep threat. 6'3", 200, 4'4". He's going to be able to stretch the field. And we haven't had a dude like that. Yes, we have had Turpin, but Turpin still is more of a very similar to CD in where he likes to, how the routes that he likes to run in, and then what he does after he catches the football.
If you put Turpin out wide, they're like, okay, it's going deep to Turpin.
Exactly.
Right? Whereas you have George Pickens who runs the whole route tree. You don't know when he's going to try to take the top off the defense.
Double stack Turpin and Blue in the backfield, and then you have Pickens and CeeDee Lamb wide out. Who are you going to go to when you have 4 weapons flying out like that? You could even have Fergie in the mix there.
Well, and we talk about him only having 800 yards last year. Or how many yards did he
900.
have? 900 yards and 6 touchdowns last year?
Yeah.
Name another wide receiver on the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And
I couldn't.
No, I couldn't.
I couldn't even tell you that.
Fairmouth is their tight end, but I couldn't tell you another wide receiver.
Oh, sorry. 987 yards, 64 receptions,
4 touchdowns.
The only thing that stands out to me in his is just that he's got mid reception numbers. Not bad, not great. Like he's catching 6 out of 10 footballs. Okay. That's like fairly average, but when you add in who's been throwing him the football, I think you put a little bit of a question mark on that.
Imagine being on the Steelers last year. Bryson Carver from the Carving It Up podcast. Give him a goddamn like. What are you doing? There it is. There it is.
Steelers are down at Cleveland trying a last-ditch Hail Mary. While other Steelers players are doing what, receivers do on Hail Marys, which is try and fight through the scrum to make a play on the football. Instead of fighting for the football, George Pickens was fighting Greg Newsome out of bounds in the back of the end zone.
He'd fit in
as he had been doing the entire game. So you have that. He was also fined $20,000 for dropping the ball on a Bengals defender and then for making a firearm gesture for a first down.
Oh, lame.
Speaking of the Bengals,
Bryson.
Week 18 home against Cincinnati. You have an opportunity to get yourself some good playoff seeding. You've missed time due to injury, and you're saying you got to get me the
yelling
football.
At us?
And what did George Pickens do in Week 18? He caught 1 pass for 0 yards on 6 targets and had 3 drops.
Ugh, that is bad.
So when you need him the most from a production standpoint, he disappears.
Who is his quarterback?
When you need him to not lose his mind, he can't do that.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, part of the reason the Steelers traded him too, he wants a new contract. Good luck, Dallas, in your already not so ideal salary cap situation. When you pay Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, you're going to pay Micah Parsons, obviously. And by the way, George Pickens is going to want to be paid like a number 1 receiver. And so, again, from a production standpoint, Dallas got a true number 2 opposite CeeDee Lamb. As it pertains to how this is going to work, I mean, there were some Cowboys fans that couldn't stand Dez Bryant. Dez Bryant, A, wasn't this bad, and B, there was a 3-year stretch where Dez might have been the best receiver in the league. I mean, it was like Dez, Megatron, Julio Jones, Antonio Brown were kind of like the big 4 around like the mid-2010s. And by the way, Dez for his flaws and some of the off-field issues early in his career, Dez, and he would tell you, just want to win. I want the ball because I think we give ourselves the best chance to win. I would buy that with George Pickens if we didn't have the other stuff. If we didn't have fighting a defensive back in the middle of a last-second Hail Mary play when you're not even on the field. When you are going at Steelers fans, yelling at Steelers fans from the bench, saying, give me the football, and you have 1 catch for 0 yards, 3 drop in a Week 18 game against Cincinnati. He's unreliable, he's immature, and it's going to be a disaster in Dallas. He'll have moments. Don't get me wrong. He'll have deep balls that he'll make plays on, and maybe he'll win a game or two for the Dallas Cowboys next year. You know, maybe they'll double CD land.
Dak,
if he wins 2 games for us,
far and away.
we're playoff
the best
bound,
quarterback
baby.
George Pickens has ever played with in his NFL career.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
Brayson's
it's
a big
been
Dak
like
guy.
Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. Dak Prescott clears those guys comfortably. He'll probably find a way to screw that up too. Good on the Steelers for moving off. You get a 3rd-round pick. That's pretty good.
Okay.
Let's unpack it. Let's
Well,
unpack
let's
because all
Great.
factual points.
I love Bryson. I totally respect everything he says. I really do. But for being happy about what happened, he seems pretty pissed off about it.
I know.
I think no. You know what I think was happening there?
He let the frustration of
and
it
he was revisiting those moments,
And it was getting
and it was
fired
like, oh, fuck.
Well,
but you know
we're here for those moments. I'm gonna be here for those moments. I want to feel those George Pickens fighting Greg Newsome in the backfield.
Also, go follow Bryson if you haven't.
If you haven't,
Carving Up Podcast.
Carving Up Podcast. And he
Fucking
does
love
say this
Bryson.
here, George Pickens is wildly talented. He's also a hothead who is incapable of controlling his emotions. So he acknowledges both sides.
which he's not wrong.